on 25b, which is the second to the bottom line, Mesri. Just go over what we learned. We had a Mishnah where we had a machlokes. What the machlokes is, a Akabi ben Ma'alal and Chacham. It's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. And we're talking about hair that's removed from an animal before either the animal's shechted. I'm sorry, let me clarify. It's hair that's moved from a bechor, that's a balmum. And then the animal is shechted, or the animal died. And that's a machlokes Akavi ben Malal, if that hair that was removed before, where you're not allowed to take off hair off an animal that's psulei mikdashim, that was a sacrifice and now has a blemish. It's only permitted to eat. However, after the shechita, you're allowed to remove the hair. So here, the hair was removed. The hair was removed before, but then it was shechted. So it's a machlokes if it's permitted. That's the way Rabbi Yehuda learned it. And Rabbi Yossi said, no, everyone agrees if it was shechted, it's permitted. The question is if it died. Then are you allowed to use that hair? Kavi ben Malal says yes, and the Chum says no.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
one more thing. Yesterday we kept on mentioning meat cleaver. So we weren't separating the hair with the meat cleaver. We separating by hand in order to allow a meat
shechita.
cleaver.
Right.
It wasn't the keli used to separate. Because I kept the same as before.
Right, that was how we explained it at the end.
Okay, because...
That it was for the cleaver.
Right.
Because you're only supposed to do it by hand. That was a statement from Ravasi in the name of Rish Lakish. Now, then we had a statement from Rish Lakish, again Ravasi in the name of Rish Lakish, that when do we say that this is considered like it had a mum, and if the hair is removed, then we enter into that machlokes. That's only if we had an expert decide that there was a mum. But if the expert didn't decide that there was a mum, then it's not counted. It's considered like there's no mum. So now the Gemara asks Meisvei. It's Kashan Rish Lakish, Rabasi in the name of Rish Lakish, that the expert needed to have made the decision that there's a mum in there, and then the hair is removed. If someone removes the hair, the wool, from a firstborn animal, that's a tam. There's no mum there. Tam means perfect. It also means tame. In Baba Kama, tam means tame. Over here it means that it doesn't have a mum. It means perfect. Afal pishin nailed by mum, even though afterwards it got a mum, b'shachta, and it was slaughtered, aser. It's forbidden. The Gemara is medayik. It examines exactly the wording here. It says, Taima the tam. What's the reason why this hair is forbidden? Because it was removed while it was still a sacrifice. You see, while it's still perfect, it doesn't have a blemish, then for sure you're not allowed to remove the hair, because that's a sacrifice. You're not allowed to take the hair off the sacrifice. That's what taking you're going to make a sweater out of sacrifice wool. You can't do that. You can't take the hair off the wool off the sacrifice. That everyone. So what's the reason why it's forbidden? Because it was a sacrifice. It was a tam. Ha balmum. But if it would have a blemish, shari, then it would be permissible. The word shari means permissible.
Excuse me. Is it that removing the hair creates a blemish?
No. Removing the hair is like milking the animal, which you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to take your own benefits off this. It's a sacrifice. So afal pishli tiramumcha, even though it wasn't, we're medayik. What's the reason why it's forbidden? Is because it was perfect. It was without a blemish. But if it had a blemish, even if the expert hadn't made any decision about it, it would be permissible. It's a kasha on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish said you needed to have the expert also. In other words, if we wanted to say this, we could have said Hataylish tzemer mi b'chor balmum shaloi hayra mumcha in its aser. Must be that's not the case. We don't need the expert. Mumcha means an expert. We don't need the expert to decide. It's a kasha on Rish Lakish. He says you do need the expert to decide.
By tzuras, where the expert is the Kohen,
Right.
all right, the tzuras is not tzuras until the Kohen says so. So the status quo is that he's not the tzaras. So why don't we use that same logic here and say, you think it's a Baal Mum, but guess what? He ain't a Baal Mum yet. So therefore, until comes an expert and says he's a Baal Mum, who gives you the right to say he's a Baal Mum?
Look at the Gemara's answer. Maybe what you're saying. Tana, this Brisa, this Mishnah that we're quoting, the Brisa, Kol heichad leitir mumcha tam karilai. As long as the expert doesn't make a decision, he considers it perfect, without a blemish. Maybe that's what the Gemara means.
I didn't read it.
That until that until you say Baruch Shekivanti, until the expert makes a decision. Until the expert makes a decision, so it's considered that it doesn't have a blemish. No, it's not exactly like that, because by tzaras it is the pronouncement. Over here it's the expertise. Over here it's the expertise. It's just like, by nida, let's say, you have to you make a decision, but that's an expertise. It's not the pronouncement. It's not like tzaras that it says tameh or tahar or whatever. Okay, lema katanai. The Gemara suggests that maybe the statement of Rish Lakish is actually a machlekes tanaim, because we're going to quote a brisa that's going to have two opinions that look very, very similar. And the only way that we're going to be explained why we need these two opinions there, because they seem to be saying the same thing, is if what they're really arguing about is if they're accepting Rish Lakish's opinion, that you need to have the pronouncement from the expert. That would be the machlekes. So that's what we're going to do now. The lema katana is usually asked as a question. So, in other words, why do we need Rish Lakish to say anything on his own? He could just say he paskins like this Tana. He doesn't have to make his own new new discussion. So lema katana. Let us say that what Rish Lakish said is actually one of the opinions of the Tanoim, and then there's an opinion that argues. If someone removes wool from a Bechor Tam, now Bechor Tam means a Bechor that doesn't have a blemish. It's perfect. Not necessarily. Could be that it has a blemish, but the expert didn't make a rule on it, because that's the way we just learned it a second ago. Okay? But meanwhile, let's ignore that. Bechor Tam, it's an animal without a blemish. Afal Pishin Noil by Mum, even though it then gets a blemish, B'shachta Yasser, and then it's slaughtered, that wool is still forbidden because it was removed beforehand. Bechor Bal Mum, Shetalash Mimenu, let's say it was an animal that had a blemish already, Va'acher Kach Meis, then the animal died, not shechted, died. So Akavya ben Malal mater, v'chachamim meiser. Akavya ben Malal says that hair that was removed before is permissible, and the chachamim say that no. Now it's clear that after it dies, you're not allowed to remove the hair from an animal. It's just supposed to be buried. It's just supposed to be buried. So,
Akavya ben Malal is very early, very, very early. Before Hillel?
I think that he's in the days of Rabbi Akiva. In the Mishnayos, we've already passed Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and we've discussed Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's students. And then the next parak goes to Akavya ben Malala. We're going to have a statement over here from Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta that's going to claim that his father was one of the sages that argues with Akavya ben Malal. So I would assume if this is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta and his father is arguing with Akavya ben Malal, so it's around the time of Rabbi Akiva.
Interesting.
Going to have the Chassidish Pshat, Akavya ben Malal. It's a whole story. Okay.
Wait a second. Factual question. So he removed the hair in order to shacht, but before he did, the animal died. Is that what's going on here?
Never be on your
He removed the hair before the animal died.
But
Then the animal died.
Before he shechted.
Well, actually, over here we're not saying he shechted.
But before he didn't shecht because the animal died
The
first.
animal died.
First.
Yeah, right. The animal died. There was no shechita. And when the animal dies, then there's a problem to remove the hair. So we're saying that because it came off before, after it was Balmum, and it didn't come off. Yeah, how did we explain this before? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Why is it permissible? Why is it permissible if it dies? Before, I'm not sure the reason for Akavia ben Malal. Okay. So far, we have the machlokes listed here. It should be in there. Is that the brachos? Or Bechoros?
No, this is the next one.
Oh, that's volume 2. Okay. We had yesterday a whole bunch of Gemaras here. They must have brought them downstairs.
Made sure.
And the only thing else that we could do here, there's a Masechta Bechoros, right here, second to the end. You see it says Gimel? Yeah, that stuff you test, Lam test, I will have it.
This one?
Yeah. So we've just said now that there's a machlokes between Akavi ben Malal and the Chachamim when the animal dies and the wool was removed before it died and it has a mum. Akavi says that you're allowed to use that wool and the Chachamim say no. So go back to Chavav. Takes a whole lesson how to use this Gemara. One more. Turn this way. Yeah. So here we are. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. We're up to Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Lo b'zeh heter Akavi ben Malal." Nope. Akavi ben Malal did not permit this one. Ela b'sar b'chor balmum shenosher v'nicha b'chalayin v'achkach shochatu. B'zeh Akavi ben Malal mati v'cham ma'isrim. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it died, that's not the leniency of Akavi ben Malal. Akavi ben Malal was lenient when you slaughtered it, after the hair was removed, and then that hair you're allowed to use, that wool. Amar Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says this is the piece that I mentioned. Moida Abba Chalafta. My father Chalafta agrees b'zeh shehu muter. Now, even my father, that's part of the sages that argue on Akavia ben Malal, he holds that if the animal was shechted, that it's still permissible. Aval, in truth, beyichud, clearly, Amr Chachamim, the sages said, Yanichenu b'chalayin, you leave it at the window, Shema yesh tikvav, maybe there'll be some hope. Shachtu, and if it gets shechted, Divrei HaKolmat, a very interesting language. If it's slaughtered, then everyone will say that it's mutter, because Rabbi Yosi holds that there's no machlekes by shachtu. Even the sages agree that it's permissible. However, meis, if it died, then Akavia ben Malal mate v'chachamim meisrim. Akavia ben Malal permits, and the sages say that it's forbidden. Now we had 3 opinions here. The first one says there's a machlekes Akavia ben Malal when it dies, when the animal dies. The second opinion was Rabbi Yehuda that says the machlekes is when it's shechted. And then you have the opinion of Rabbi Yosi that says the machlekes is when it dies. The Gemara immediately asks, Rabbi Yosi hainu Tanakama. Those 3 opinions is really only 2 opinions. Either machlekes is when it's shechted or when it died.
It says over here right in the beginning that it was because it's derabana.
Okay.
The copy says prohibition against sharing the bechor even when it's blemished is biblical. The ban against using the shorn wool, at least while the animal is alive, is rabbinic.
Right.
So that's where Akavia ben Malal says, since it fell off by itself,
Uh-huh.
so then when it becomes kosher, then that flows along with it. Just what you were asking.
No,
Why?
I'm asking.
No, he was asking it before. What's the reason a kavim moral permits it?
Right now, what's happening is that there's a concern that you may end up leaving the animal, delaying the animal's slaughter.
That's why they banned it.
So, because you want the hair to grow. So they said that you're not allowed to use the hair anyway. So now, but after it's slaughtered, then you are allowed to use the hair. Now my question is like this. After it's slaughtered, I'm allowed to use the hair from after it's slaughtered. Nakavi ben malal is mater, I'm allowed to use the hair from before as well, because now it's been slaughtered already. I don't have to
it fell off by itself. So he said, shenosha.
Okay.
The key word is shenosha.
At the end of the Gemara, that's not the pshat. At the end of the Gemara, that's not the pshat.
Okay.
But my question is, and this maybe they say over there, what happens when the animal dies without shechita? Am I allowed to use that wool? No, my understanding is that no, because the entire animal needs to be buried, right? Even though it has a mum. So what's Akavi ben Malala's logic that I can use the hair, the wool, if it's considered that it came off afterwards? So then it has to be buried. If it's considered that it came off before, I wasn't allowed to use the wool from before. See, by shechita, I'm allowed to use the wool afterwards because I can eat it.
But what he's saying over here is the whole derabanan was because we don't want the person to keep it and to get more wool. But since it fell by itself, the key is shenosha.
No, but the Gemara's not going to say that though. Okay.
You know what he says.
Okay. Let's see. Well, maybe it'll get clear. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Yosi is the Tanakama. The Tanakama said that the machlekes Akavia ben Malal is when it dies. Akavia ben Malal is mater. And Rabbi Yosi also said when it dies. The Gemara says Elalav, and this is our question. This is the point that why we're bringing this down. Hitiru mumche kebeinayu. That there's a difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yosi regarding if you need the mum, the blemish, to be pronounced by the expert. The Tanakama savar hitiru mumche in Eily. The Tanakama hold that if the expert pronounced it, then it's considered a mum, and if not, not. But Rabbi Yosi, we'll go through the thank you, Mom. We'll go through the Brisa. Rabbi Yosi says, even though the expert didn't pronounce it, as long as it had a mum, it's still already acceptable. Now, if you go back to the Brisa, it's actually very interesting how it fits in. The Brisa began with if someone removed wool from a Bechor Tam, it didn't have a mum. And how do we learn that? It didn't have a mum. It means that it really did have a mum, but just the expert didn't pronounce it. That's how the Gemara previously said that.
Talking about Rish Lakish?
We're now explaining.
This is all going according to Rish Lakish.
According to Rish Lakish.
This is the whole thing is to explain.
That's the Lema Ketanai. So if you look at the beginning of the Brisa, it says, "Tzemer mi bechor tam." That means that there really was a mum there, even though it says it's a tam. It means that the expert never pronounced it as a mum. And afapisha by mum, even though he then went ahead and pronounced it, if you shecht it, it's aser. However, bechor bal mum, if that means it was already pronounced by the expert. So that's the Tanakama's opinion. What's the difference between? It's a continuation of the Gemara's last answer. Comes along Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi isn't talking about if the pronouncement or not. He just says if there was a mum. What does Rabbi Yosi say? He says Shema yesh tikva. Maybe there'll be some hope. What is the hope?
It's the mum over.
The hope is that maybe the expert will pronounce it.
Pronounce it what?
Will pronounce it that it has a mum. You see, the tikva is when you have to rely on someone else it requires hope. If it's just going to get a mum wait for it to get a mum. It can't be that it had a mum. What does it mean, Shema Yesh Tikva? It had to have a mum already.
Now that we've gone this far, I have to say.
So maybe the
that
tikkur was that the moon goes away.
No,
It
then it's going to be a problem.
Now that we're
Because
here,
then
I
it's
have
going to be
to
a
say
sacrifice.
that,
Then I can't use
But
the
that's
bull.
the ultimate purpose.
Yeah, but then
of
the Kavya and Malal and the Chachamim don't fit. I'm sorry?
It's a tortured way to use the word nolad, to say, I would not use the word nolad as it's used other places in the Halakha, to say nolad because someone came along and pronounced a condition that already existed.
Okay, so 1 second. Are you asking in the Tanakama?
I'm asking on the Brisa.
Hatilas
Alpha Pisha
Tsar.
Nolad Bomum. It's not like anything new happened to the moon.
You're right.
Somebody came and said it's a moon.
You're right.
Like you said, it's a.
Isn't that the other interpretation? Is Noah Roa as Hanolad, where it's actually retroactive?
Yeah, but when you actually do it, then it's not. If it's up to someone's activity, then that's not Noilad. Noilad is like this natural
It
outcome.
occurs. It just occurs.
No, I'm saying
On
there's
its own.
another
I hear you.
interpretation. That's retro Hanoah as Haroa as Hanolad, that he understood from what it was in the past.
Right? No,
I thought there was.
yeah,
the
but
other.
there is such a thing. The Rayas and Noilad. To see, you're able to see the outcome
Yeah,
based on
what
right.
something. It's just the
But
opposite of what
he's asking on the Noilad by Mum, the way the Gemara is learning it now, means that even though it was later pronounced, and that's not Noilad. I hear. It's an interesting point. Okay, so here, right here, at this point, we're saying that we have two opinions that appear to be exactly the same, the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi, and the only way that we can explain the difference is if we say that the difference between them is if they're accepting Reish Lakish's opinion, where the Tanakama accepts Reish Lakish's opinion that it needs to be pronounced by a mumcha, and Rabbi Yossi doesn't mention anything. And to prove Rabbi Yossi that he doesn't care for the pronouncement, not that he doesn't care for the pronouncement, to prove that it doesn't matter if the hair was removed before the pronouncement, is because Rabbi Yossi then goes and says, Shema Yesh Tikva. Now, obviously, the hair had to be removed after it had a mum. And then what am I doing? What am I waiting for? I'm waiting for the expert to pronounce that it's a real mum. The Gemara now says, I'm a Rav Eily. Rav says that that's not necessarily the machlekes here. The Kuli Alma, everyone agrees, Ihi Tira Mumcha in, Eily, everyone accepts Rish Lakish. That the hair needs to be removed after the pronouncement of the expert. B'shalish machlekes b'davar, and we actually have three different opinions. Nothing to do with Rish Lakish. The Tanakama Savar Pligi b'meis v'adin l'shachtei. It goes like this. Tanakama holds that the machlekes hakavya ben malal and the chachamim in two cases, whether the animal died afterwards or whether the animal was shechted. Rabbi Yehuda says the machlekes is when the animal was shechted, but when it dies, everyone agrees that it's aser. And Rabbi Yossi is going to say the Tanakama, and Rabbi Yossi is going to say Akavi ben Malal and the Chachamim argue when it died, but when it's shechted, everyone agrees that it's mutter. So you have the three possibilities here. I have two cases. Rabbi Yossi picks that the machlek is only in one case. Rabbi Yehuda picks the machlek is only in one case, and the Tanakama says that it's in both. Those are the. So, v'hayda kamiflagi b'meis. If they're arguing about both, why does he say that they're arguing about when it died? Because that's what we're trying to do to the Tanakama. We're trying to say that they're arguing about both cases, meis and shachto. It's coming to tell you that even that Akavya is so lenient that even by meis he also is mater. Rabbi Yehuda saver b'meis divrei kol aser. Rabbi Yehuda says if it died, there's no machlekes. Akavya agrees that it's aser. Kipligi b'shachtei. The only machlekes is when it was shechted, because after it's shechted, then you're allowed to eat the meat. You're also allowed to use the hair. However, by meis not. Vasser Rabbi Yossi lemeimar b'shachtei divrei kol muter. Rabbi Yossi says if it's shechted, then everyone would agree. If I can eat the meat, I can have the hair, use the wool. Keep pligi b'meis. The machlekes is where the Rabbanan say, the Chachamim say that if it dies, I can't use the wool. And Akavya ben Malal has this leniency which we were discussing.
Three opinions.
Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman says, halacha Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says the machlekes is by the shechita. Machlekes Akavya ben Malal is
They didn't say who is a halacha of Akavim Malal or.
Oh, that's interesting.
These halachas are.
That's a good
So
point.
what kind of halacha is it? Yeah, it's very good. Excellent.
Do we have a rule somewhere? Who,
Tanna
if
Kama
there's
and,
we go like the
Kavim
Rabbim? You see, because it's going to make a difference. If I follow,
What Tanna Kama says, sure.
if I follow the Chachamim, so the Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi is according to Rabbi Yehuda the by Mace the Chachamim aser, and they also aser by Shachtu. But according to Rabbi Yossi, by Shachtu the Chachamim are matir. So there's a difference even in the Chachamim's opinion.
Yeah.
So, okay, and the reason is Hayulutanan bebechirta kavasei. Why? Because they put it in a graph.
Yes.
Beautiful. This really clears it up. Like,
Because it's it was taught in Masechta Idias. Bechirta is Masechta Idias. That's the expression.
You're
Since it
calling
was
us idiots?
Just some.
the best.
Head joke, is that
Bechirta.
what you're saying?
No, Idias. Edias. In Masechta Edias.
Sounds like a
One of the Masechtas.
Edjod? You're talking
Yeah.
about Edjod?
Ediot. So in that Masechta, the Gemara calls it Bechirta. That's the chosen Masechta. Over there, it has like all the conclusions and all the discussions of where Beis Shammai is more lenient over Beis Hillel. It has like select.
That's all it
a
is,
selection.
it's conclusions.
Right. So because over there it teaches Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, so that's why the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanan over there it teaches Sar Bechor Balmum Shenosha V'nicha B'chalei Machkach Shachtoi. It says clearly that the hair was removed. And then it was shechted Akavi ben Malal Mate v'Chacham Meisrim. And the Chacham forbid it. If you look the Aleph in the Gemara, the note where the halacha goes, it's on the Chachamim, which usually they say that means that's the.
Well, I have a question. It says, what, he put the hair in the window?
He says you leave it
But I
until.
thought he wasn't allowed to take it off. I thought the whole, up until now, the hair had to be stuck with the other hairs matted.
If it died.
I thought we were never even allowed to
No.
remove.
Right. So if it's removed.
I guess if it's removed, they don't know what
If
to
it's
do.
removed, then I have a machlekes Akavi ben Malal
They
Nachachamim.
don't know what to do.
What we said that you're not supposed to remove it, that's the Chachamim's opinion that says that it's usher if it is removed. But if it's not removed, if it's there embedded in the other wool, then if it appears to be part of the other wool, then it's going to be permissible as part of the other wool. But if it's removed, then it's going to be usher. That's the Chachamim's opinion, as we'll see. Amar Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak says, "Masnisa nami deika." Our Mishnah is also precise that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. How can our Mishnah be precise? Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah said both opinions. Ditanan. Because if you look at the last statement of the Mishnah chooses to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. It says, Ditanan, Tzemer hamiduldul bebechar. The hair that's removed, it's removed from the animal, but it's still embedded in the other wool. So, eshenira min agiza, what appears to be part of what's removed now, in other words, because now the animal is dead, or it was shechted, now the animal was shechted, and what appears to be part of what you removed, so that's going to be mutter, because after it's shechted, everyone agrees you're allowed to remove the hair. Veshe'ina nira, but what appears to be part of what was removed before it was shechted, before the removal, that's asur. The Gemara now explains mani. Who could this opinion be? Eily Rabbi Yossi. If we say it's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who says that the machlekes is only regarding if it died, ilema b'shachtai. If we say that this animal was shechted, because it doesn't say what happened to this animal. So bein akavya, bein rabbanan idividi mishashari. And everyone would agree that the hair is permissible. The hair is permissible before, the hair is permissible after. So why are we saying that it depends if it looks like it's part of the hair that's removed now? If it looks like it's part of the hair removed now, then it's permissible. Why does it have to be part of the hair now? Even if it was part of the hair before, according to Rabbi Yossi, the Chachamim agree that if it's shechted, the hair that was removed before is also permissible. So it can't be a case that it was shechted, according to Rabbi Yossi. Vela b'meis. It must be that the animal died and it's a machlekes. V'i rabbanan, if it's the rabbis, idivi de meiser asri, then why is it permissible after it died? You're not allowed to remove the hair after it died either. Because it needs to be buried. In the Rabbanan, if it was removed beforehand, the Rabbanan say that it's forbidden as well. Via kavya, and if it's Akavya's opinion, then it's exactly the opposite. Ipcha mi Eily. You should say it exactly the opposite, because Akavya ben Malal only allows the hair that was removed previously, not the hair that's removed after it died. After it died, it needs to be buried. So the hair that's removed that appears to be part of the giza should be asr. The hair that's not part of the giza should be mutter. Nira im giza asr. The misa kasrele, because it died, needs to be buried. Eina nira min giza mutter the mikara talish, because it was removed before. So it clearly cannot be in any way going according to Rabbi Yossi. Elapshita Rabbi Huda. It must be that the last case of the Mishnah is Rabbi Huda. B'mai. Now what's the case? Ilema b'meis. If the animal died, bein la kavya, bein la rabbanan idivi de meis asri, then everyone agrees that it's forbidden. Even after it died, it's forbidden. Before it died, it's forbidden. Ela lav b'shchita. It must be that we're talking about that it was shechted. Okay, now we have a machlekes. Via kavya. If it's a kavya, then idividi mishashari. Then if it was shechted, I'm allowed to remove the hair afterwards. I'm allowed to remove I'm not allowed. If the hair was removed from before, it's also permissible. Ela lav rabbanan. It must be it's the rabbi's opinion. Let's say it depends. After it's shechted, the hair is allowed to be removed, and it's permissible. Before it's shechted, the hair is forbidden. So that's why nira minagiza is only after it's shechted, and it will only fit according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to the Chachamim. Shmamina b'shachti pligi shmamina. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, that the machlekes is regarding the shechita. Boy Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai has a question. Rabbi Yanai is very early. Hataylish, it's in Eretz Yisrael. Hataylish tzemer mi oila tamima mahu. If someone removes the hair from a sacrifice, from a korban oila, what's the din with that wool that's removed? The Gemara asks, Tailish, if you remove it, Miyakaman the Shari, anyone allows you to remove